Stephen Strange isn't about magic. He's about what happens when intelligence stops working. Only one actor understood that. Stephen Strange doesn't break because his hands fail. He breaks because his mind finally meets something it can't solve. That's why this role was never about learning spells. It was about portraying the moment intelligence stops being enough. Very few actors could live inside that collapse without rushing past it. Decide this as you watch when everything you rely on stops working. Do you fight harder or learn to let go? Stay through the entire story, because understanding why Doctor Strange works means understanding why surrender can be more powerful than control. Before Benedict Cumberbatch became Doctor Strange, almost no one pictured him inside a superhero franchise, least of all him. He did not arrive with physical dominance or conventional leading man energy. His presence worked differently. It was sharp rather than loud, controlled rather than explosive. He carried authority through stillness, not force. Hollywood knew exactly how to use that. Cast him as the brilliant detective, the tortured intellectual, the man who could dismantle a room with a sentence instead of a punch. Sherlock Holmes, damaged geniuses, men who lived entirely in their heads. This put Cumberbatch in a category that rarely crossed paths with capes and cosmic battles. Prestige drama had its own lane, and superhero films lived somewhere else entirely. One space rewarded nuance and restraint. The other rewarded spectacle and scale. Cumberbatch belonged very clearly to the first. He was admired for intelligence, diction, and depth. His performances asked audiences to lean in rather than cheer. Hollywood respected him, but it also contained him. And he was comfortable there. He did not campaign for blockbuster relevance. He did not chase franchises. He valued work that challenged thought rather than demanded transformation. The idea of him bending reality or throwing spells would have sounded absurd compared to the roles that defined him. Superheroes were physical myths. Cumberbatch specialized in psychological ones. That separation mattered. Because when Doctor Strange finally arrived, it worked precisely because Cumberbatch had never tried to look like a superhero before. His power came from contradiction. From the feeling that this man did not belong in that world and yet somehow understood it better than most. Marvel Studios noticed Benedict Cumberbatch early. Long before contracts and announcements, they recognized that Doctor Strange required something different. The character was not about brute strength or inherited destiny. He was about intellect colliding with humility. But timing refused to cooperate. Each time Marvel circled him, something interfered. A prior commitment, a conflicting shoot, a role already promised. In Hollywood, this is usually where stories end, almost as rarely followed by again. The industry moves forward quickly, and roles evolve without waiting. For most actors, a missed opportunity simply becomes a footnote. But Doctor Strange lingered. The character itself was difficult, not universally beloved, not easy to simplify. He was arrogant, spiritual, scientific, dismissive, wounded, and ultimately transformed by things he could not control. Marvel needed an actor who could convey that shift without exposition. Someone whose face could show disbelief, turning into surrender. Someone whose intelligence felt authentic, not theatrical. Cumberbatch fit that requirement exactly. Yet each delay risked losing him permanently. What made this different was that Marvel did not replace him. They waited. That patience revealed something important. Doctor Strange was not a role you could simply cast. It demanded the right mind more than the right body. Cumberbatch did not chase the part. He allowed it to return to him, and when it finally did, it felt less like opportunity and more like inevitability. Stephen Strange is difficult by design. He is brilliant, and he knows it. His arrogance is not charming. It is abrasive. He treats people as tools and outcomes as proof of superiority. Marvel worried audiences would reject him before they ever cared enough to follow his journey. A hero who begins as insufferable is a risk. Cumberbatch did not soften that risk. He embraced it fully. But he understood something crucial. Arrogance is rarely confidence. It is fear wearing control like armor. Strange is not cruel because he enjoys it. He is cruel because being ordinary terrifies him. His identity depends entirely on being exceptional. Without that, he has nothing. By playing Strange this way, Cumberbatch made the character psychologically honest. You could feel the insecurity beneath every dismissal, the panic beneath every insult. This was not a man who thought himself superior. This was a man who needed to be superior to survive himself. That interpretation allowed audiences to tolerate Strange long enough to understand him. Arrogance became a flaw worth watching rather than a barrier. And that choice made the transformation possible without betraying the character's core. Doctor Strange does not begin with wonder. It begins with devastation, the loss of control, the collapse of identity. Cumberbatch played this descent quietly without melodrama. A surgeon whose hands once defined him reduced to shaking, unreliable tools. A man who solved everything suddenly unable to solve himself. This was not heroic suffering. It was humiliation. The kind that strips away dignity rather than creating sympathy. Strange does not deserve redemption yet, and the film does not grant it early. Cumberbatch allowed the character to sit inside failure, to resist help, to lash out, to cling to denial longer than was comfortable to watch. Only after arrogance was fully dismantled could something else take its place. The magic was not empowerment, it was acceptance. And because the fall was treated seriously, the rise felt earned. Doctor Strange presented visual insanity, but the performance remained anchored. While cities folded and dimensions fractured, Cumberbatch stayed human. Confused, defensive, learning through resistance rather than enthusiasm. He did not master magic quickly. He struggled, failed, doubted. The humor was restrained. The confidence arrived slowly. That pacing mattered. The audience never felt asked to believe in spectacle without emotional logic. The impossible worked because the man experiencing it felt real. Doctor Strange did not feel like fantasy imposed on a character. It felt like a character forced to expand beyond fantasy. As the MCU expanded, Strange became something rare. Not the strongest, not the loudest. The one who sees further. In Endgame, Cumberbatch delivered one of the quietest yet most devastating moments in the franchise. Strange does not fight for glory. He accepts loss as necessity. When he raises one finger, it is not dramatic. It is final. The weight of 14 million futures sits behind that gesture. Cumberbatch played it without emphasis, because the moment did not need it. Benedict Cumberbatch did not become Doctor Strange because he learned magic. He became Doctor Strange because he understood surrender. Stephen Strange is not about spells. He is about relinquishing control, accepting that intelligence alone cannot save you. Cumberbatch made Strange human before making him powerful, and that is why the character endures. Doctor Strange did not elevate him. He elevated Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange doesn't stay with us because of spells or spectacle. He stays because he shows what happens when control finally fails and something deeper has to take its place. Benedict Cumberbatch made that moment feel real. The pause before surrender, the fear of letting go, the quiet decision to trust something beyond intelligence. That's the part most people miss. Now I want to hear from you. Which moment in this story changed how you see Doctor Strange, the arrogance, the collapse, or the choice to surrender? Tell me in the comments, and if you want more stories that break down why characters actually work, subscribe. Because the most powerful transformations aren't loud. They happen when control ends and understanding begins.